This is Limited Engagement. So what's the training like for those 8th graders that you have working with the 3rd graders?
Well, so a lot of the time that was spent writing it was trying to make it so simple that you don't have to train. You want to empower the 8th graders, and I hate spoon feeding. It's a real kind of, and that was also based on the 2 years of working in this environment of just like, let's just empower them, and not tell them exactly what they need to do. And so the lesson plans that they have are, I'm going to sound like I'm totally contradicting myself, but they're sort of scripted, right? So we don't have to sit them down and say, you do this, then you do this, then you do this, you do this. What we do is we go in at the beginning of the semester and we do like a shouting social justice orientation, kind of get everybody fired up piece. And it's really neat. It's one of my favorite pieces of the whole program, I guess. And we just talk about, what it feels like to be retained in 3rd grade and how that affects kids. And do you have a brother or sister in 3rd grade? And, how would that affect you? And so we talk about why we do what we do. And then we talk about what they're going to get out of it. And, like you said, they're just going into high school. So, yeah, they get volunteer hours, but we can write letters of recommendation. We can do all kinds of things. But I like to talk about my really weird story, and lucky I don't do them anymore. Kelsey does them, so I've been taken off this task, probably because I keep telling this story. But like I say, like, when I get home from work and I'm always late because I work much more than I am meant to, and so my husband's always angry. Like, you walk home and you walk into an angry home, he's probably gonna listen to this and he's gonna be like, wow. But like, you've got that feeling of guilt, right? When you're coming home and you're late and the baby's being left by, again by himself for far too long. But I have 2 dogs, and like, it doesn't matter what you've done. They think that you're like the coolest thing just because you got home, right?
Right.
And the way that I tell that to the 8th graders is like, these guys, especially we're targeting, in inverted commas, not your average volunteers, right? So we're targeting kids that have been identified by police officers, have been identified by social workers, principals as being at risk. So, they're moving towards gang members, or they're being courted by gangs, or they're just hanging out in the wrong parts of town and starting to show that slightly more kind of nefarious behavior, and people are worried about them, right? And they don't have a thing. They're not they're not jocks, they're not the brainy kids. They're just like,
they're not
excluded.
Participating in chess club.
Right, they are definitely not in the chess club. And so these guys have probably not wholly positive school days. Like, there's not a lot of people giving them like, yeah, you go, buddy, like positive mental, or whatever, go like positive recognition. And a lot of them are going to come from chaotic backgrounds, just by nature of where we're targeting. And
their
so they just
probably aren't home when they go home.
A lot of them are looking up. They're looking after their younger siblings. They're primary caregivers, and so they're not getting that peace. And it's that peace where someone just is so excited to see you and thinks you're the coolest thing ever. And that's really powerful. It's really powerful if you for everyone, but especially if you've never had that. And I don't mean to do any, who knows what their lives are like. I'm not going to generalize, but it's just a really powerful thing anyway. But because they're like the naughtier kids a lot of the time, they look kind of intimidating. They're big. Like, I remember one semester in a Phoenix L school, these kids were huge, and like they can look pretty intimidating by 8th grade. And so the 3rd graders think they're even cooler. Like, this is the most awesome thing that's ever happened. Like, you could give them anything to do. They don't care. Like, it happens to be a really, really well-researched intentional literacy curriculum. They don't care. Like, I'm just sitting next to a big, scary kid, and he thinks I'm kind of cool, or he actually thinks I'm a bit irritating, but I don't care, you know. And you see this just... Like, you see this, their characters, or they're 13 years old. There's only so dangerous that you can be. And you see them soften, and you see, like, this, again, super cheesy, but, like, they'll be, like, touching each other's hair, you know, and this little 3rd grader's, like, rested, and they've got their arm rested on the big's arm, and they, like, stroke the big's hair, you know. It's like this total infatuation. And you can't, they always get broken down in the end, and they build these really, really neat relationships. And
well, they're being given responsibility. They're being trusted with something. They're being looked up to. Yeah. You know, it's a huge positive reinforcement for them. Yeah.
We make a big deal of them. And they don't really, you know, people ask me a lot, like, how do you reward them? And, you know, I'm really irritating. Like, well, the reward is in the value that they get from making someone else's life better. But like, it is, you know, it makes you feel good. There's a reason why people drop $6,000 to go to the other side of the world and have photos taken with different kids, you know. It's because it makes you feel good.
There's a positive emotional connection.
Yeah, totally. And so we try to reward them, but mainly we reward them by giving them more responsibility and accountability, and they'll report out on how their littles have done, and that makes them feel cool. And especially when right around kind of 4 weeks into the semester, or into our program, you know, you'll start to see a difference. Like, if the curriculum works pretty quick, and the 3rd graders will improve, really, what's the way, noticeably.
Exponentially.
Yeah. And so as right about when that starts to happen, it's so noticeable that an 8th grader will definitely say, okay, this kid's reading way better than when we started a few weeks ago, you know. And as soon as that happens, and you see that their face, and that, especially if they're those kids that just have that kind of mask on the whole time, like, I defy any 8th grader when they report that news, like, they're smiling. It's really, really cool. And that's, you know, our whole, when you ask, like, why I did this, I did this because of, it's the 3rd grade reading. That is our mission. It will always be our mission. But, you know, for what makes my hair stand on end is the growth in those 8th graders and their transformation. Well, it's really awesome.